The air in his studio always tasted of silver and stop bath, a chemical tang that clung to the back of my throat. But right then, the only thing I could taste was him. His mouth was hungry against mine, a desperate, searching pressure that mirrored the frantic rhythm of his hips. The weak afternoon light struggled through the grime on the large warehouse window, casting long, distorted shadows across the floor, across our tangled bodies on the old Moroccan rug. Its threads were scratchy against my bare back, a grounding, painful sort of pleasure. I arched into him, a silent plea for more, for less, for something to break the deafening silence of my own life. His breath was a hot, ragged sound against my ear, a stark contrast to the quiet, predictable breathing of my husband Mark, who slept beside me every night. A soft whimper escaped my lips, lost in the cavernous space, swallowed by the sound of our skin sliding together, wet and slick with a sweat born from more than just heat. It was the sweat of betrayal, of a line crossed so far back we couldn't even see it anymore. And as my body tightened, as the world dissolved into a blinding, shuddering climax, the thought that flashed behind my eyes was not one of guilt, but of a devastating, terrifying sweetness. This felt more real than anything had in years. When the tremors subsided, I lay there, draped in his arm, my cheek pressed against the unfamiliar landscape of his chest. His heart hammered a wild, chaotic beat against my ear. Outside, the rain had started, a gentle, persistent drumming against the glass, washing the city clean. I stared up at the exposed pipes on the ceiling, tracing their paths with my eyes, following them until they disappeared into the darkness. My name is Clara. I've been married for 7 years to a good man, a man I once loved with a certainty that felt like bedrock. His name is Mark. And the man whose scent was now clinging to my skin, whose body was still intimately tangled with mine, his name is Leo. Leo, my husband's best friend. It was a Tuesday. Mark was in Denver for a conference, and I was supposed to be at the grocery store, picking out something for a solitary dinner. But the hollow ache of our quiet house had become a physical thing, a weight I couldn't bear. And Leo had always been there, a constant, easy presence in the background of my marriage, until he wasn't in the background anymore, until he was everything. It's a funny thing, memory. The moments that sear themselves into your mind are never the ones you expect. I have years of memories with my husband, Mark. 7 years of a shared life, a shared home, a shared bed. They exist as a placid, neatly cataloged collection of photographs in my mind, moments of respectable joy, of quiet companionship. But the memory of Leo's studio, the scratch of that rug, the taste of chemical dust and desperate kisses, that is not a photograph. It is a phantom limb, a feeling that rushes back and floods my senses when I least expect it, a ghost of sensation that is more real than the solid, expensive oak of the dining table I am sitting at now. This house was my masterpiece. As an interior designer, it was supposed to be my calling card. Every color palette was chosen with care, every piece of furniture sourced for its perfect blend of form and function. Mark had given me free rein, his only instruction being, "Make it beautiful, Clara, a place we can be proud of." And I did. It is beautiful. It is a home worthy of the pages of a magazine. It is also silent. It is a museum of a life we were supposed to be living. The silence is the loudest thing in it. Before Leo, the silence was just empty, a space waiting to be filled. I would wait for the sound of Mark's car in the driveway, a sound that came later and later as his architectural firm grew more successful. He was a brilliant man, my husband. He built monuments of glass and steel that scraped the Chicago skyline, structures that were bold and uncompromising. He loved the grand scale of things, the legacy he was etching into the city's bones. He was a good man, a provider. He never raised his voice, never denied me anything I asked for. He would come home, kiss my cheek with the dry, absent-minded affection of a long-married man, and his eyes would already be somewhere else, mentally walking the girders of his latest project. Our dinners became a monologue of his triumphs and frustrations. He'd talk about zoning permits, structural integrity, the sheer audacity of his vision, and I would nod and listen, a perfect portrait of a supportive wife. I'd ask, "And how was your day, honey?" But he wouldn't really hear the question. just the cue to continue. My own world, my own small victories with clients, the thrill of finding a perfect mid-century armchair, the subtle politics of dealing with contractors, they seemed trivial in comparison. They were small stories in a world where he was building epics. He loved me, I think. He loved the idea of me. Clara, his beautiful, tasteful wife, the creator of his serene sanctuary, the perfect hostess for his business dinners. He would look at me across a crowded room, a flash of pride in his eyes, but it was the pride of ownership, not of partnership. It was the same look he gave his first completed building. Our intimacy had faded in the same slow, imperceptible way the vibrant color fades from a photograph left in the sun. It became a duty, a quiet, almost apologetic act performed in the dark on a Saturday night if he wasn't too exhausted. There was no urgency, no exploration, just a familiar, brief comfort that left me feeling lonelier than before. I began to feel like a ghost in my own home, a curator of beautiful, empty rooms. And in the middle of this curated silence, there was Leo. Leo was Mark's best friend from their days at Northwestern, his other half, the yin to Mark's rigid, ambitious yang. He was a photographer, a man who dealt not in grand structures, but in fleeting moments, in the way light fell on a face, the hidden stories in a person's eyes. He was woven into the very fabric of our life. He was the one who showed up on a Sunday with bagels and a ridiculously bad joke. He was the one who helped us move furniture, who sat in our kitchen drinking Mark's expensive whiskey while they debated everything from politics to football. He was a permanent fixture, as much a part of our home as the leather sofa in the living room. Mark trusted him completely, utterly. Leo gets it, he'd say. He's the only one who really gets the pressure. And so, Leo became the keeper of Mark's stress, the sounding board for his ambitions. And for me, he was simply Leo. He was family in a way. He was the easy, comfortable brother I never had. I never thought of him, not in that way. He was safe. His presence was warm. It filled the silence that Mark's absence created. He was the one who would actually ask about my design projects, his eyes lighting up as I described a color scheme. "You have the eye, Clara," he'd say. "You see the things no one else does." I always thought he was just being kind, just being the good friend, filling in the conversational gaps Mark left behind. I saw him, but I didn't see him. He was a constant, a known variable in the equation of my life. His charm, his easy laugh, his attentive gaze, they were all just part of the package of Mark's best friend. I was blind to the danger, because I didn't even know I was in a wasteland. You don't go looking for water when you don't realize you're dying of thirst. You just know that you feel weak, that the world seems faded, that something vital is missing. The foundation of my marriage wasn't shattered by a single violent act. It was eroded, slowly, day by day, by the gentle, persistent drip of neglect, by the weight of 1,000 unspoken words, and a million moments of feeling utterly, completely invisible. And Leo was there for all of it, a silent witness to the slow decay, a comfortable part of the architecture of our lives. I had never thought to question his placement or the way he fit into the blueprint, not until the oppressive heat of that one summer evening, when a single glance felt like taking a sledgehammer to the very ground I stood on. The heat of that July was a physical presence, a heavy blanket that settled over the city the moment the sun came up and didn't lift until long after it had set. Our backyard was an oasis of my own making, a carefully cultivated escape from the oppressive humidity. I had strung Edison bulbs through the branches of the old maple tree, planted citronella and lavender in terracotta pots to ward off the mosquitoes, and the flagstones of the patio were cool underfoot. It was the perfect setting for Mark's annual summer barbecue, a command performance for his clients, his partners, and the handful of friends who orbited his world. The air was thick with the scent of grilling steak and the sweet perfume of blooming hydrangea. Laughter echoed off the cedar fence. On the surface, it was a picture of domestic success, another perfectly executed event in the life of Mark and Clara. And I, as always, was the silent director of the production, ensuring every glass was full, every plate was replenished, every guest felt welcomed into the grand theater of my husband's life. Mark was in his element. He stood near the grill, not cooking but holding court, His voice, confident and deep, carried across the yard as he described the new lakeside residential tower his firm had just won the contract for. He used his hands when he talked about architecture, carving shapes out of the air, his signet ring glinting in the setting sun. He was captivating. I could see it in the rapt expression of Jonathan Vance, a potential investor, who was hanging on his every word. I moved through the party with a practiced smile, a ghost in my own home. I was a collection of duties: the chip bowl refiller, the drink pourer, the gracious receiver of compliments on the garden. "Clara, this is just beautiful," someone would say, and I would thank them, but I knew the compliment was for the setting, not for me. I was part of the decor, as carefully chosen as the linen napkins and the artisanal cheese board. I felt a familiar pang of loneliness, a strange detachment, as if I were watching the evening through a pane of glass. I was there, but I wasn't. That's when Leo found me. I was by the drink table, trying to spear a stubborn olive from the bottom of a jar, my feigned concentration, a shield against having to make more small talk. He didn't announce his arrival with a booming greeting. He simply appeared beside me, leaning against the table with a casual grace that was so uniquely him. He was quiet for a moment, just watching the party with me. "Quite the performance, huh?" he murmured, his voice a low counterpoint to the boisterous laughter from Mark's circle. I gave a weak smile. "Mark is on a roll tonight." "He's always on a roll," Leo said, his eyes not on Mark, but on me. "That's not what I asked. I asked how you're doing. You've been floating around the edges all night, looking like you're about to vanish." His observation was so accurate it startled me. It was as if he'd reached right through the glass and touched me. "Just playing the part of the perfect hostess," I deflected, finally capturing the olive. "You do it well," he said, but there was no flattery in his tone. It was a simple statement of fact, tinged with something I couldn't quite decipher. Melancholy, maybe. He picked up a napkin and handed it to me. "I heard you finished the Hemlock Street project," he said, changing the subject. "The one with the client who wanted everything beige but also full of personality." I laughed, a genuine laugh that felt rusty in my throat. I had complained to him about that client weeks ago, a fleeting comment made while he and Mark were watching a game. I was shocked, he remembered. "God, yes. We finally settled on Gracie," I said, rolling my eyes. And just like that, I was talking. I told him about the breakthrough, about how I'd used texture instead of color, mixing raw silks and rough linens, and a single, dramatic piece of gnarled driftwood to give the space life. I spoke of the frustration and the final, satisfying click of a room falling into place. As I spoke, I realized how long it had been since anyone had asked me about my work with such genuine interest. Mark saw my job as a nice hobby, something that kept me busy. But Leo, he listened. He leaned in, his gaze fixed on my face, his brow furrowed in concentration. He didn't interrupt. He didn't glance over my shoulder. It was as if, in that crowded, noisy backyard, we were the only two people there. His attention was a physical thing, a warm spotlight in the cool twilight, and I felt myself unfurling under it. When I finished, a comfortable silence settled between us. The cacophony of the party seemed to recede, becoming a distant, muffled hum. We just stood there, by the flickering citronella candles, looking at each other, and the look was different. It was longer than a friendly glance. The easy, brotherly affection that had always defined his gaze was gone, replaced by an intensity, a curiosity that made the air feel thin. It was a moment of pure, unfiltered recognition. I saw a man, not just a friend, and I felt with a terrifying certainty that he was seeing a woman, not just a wife. My heart did a strange, painful flip in my chest. He was the one who finally broke the spell, though his voice was different now, softer, more intimate than before. "You know," he began, his eyes flicking up from my face to the tree above us, "the string lights you hung in that maple." He paused, his gaze returning to me, tracing the line of my hair. "The way the light gets tangled in your hair, making it look like it's spun from gold? It's really beautiful, Clara." It wasn't a line, it wasn't a flirtatious remark. It was an observation, as quiet and true as a photograph. It was personal. It was about me. A single specific detail in a world that had rendered me generic. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot through me. I could feel a hot blush creeping up my neck, a betrayal my body committed before my mind could even process the danger. This was not the comfortable warmth of friendship. This was a spark landing on dry tinder. Just then, Mark's voice boomed from across the lawn. "Leo, get over here! You gotta settle a debate for us!" The glass wall shattered, and the world rushed back in. Leo gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod, a secret acknowledgement of the moment that had just passed between us, before turning and jogging over to his friend, my husband. For the rest of the night, I was acutely, painfully aware of him. I felt his eyes on me from across the yard. Every time our gazes met, the same electric charge crackled in the air. Later, long after the last guest had gone and Mark was snoring softly upstairs, I stood in the silent kitchen, the scent of stale wine and citronella still hanging in the air. I looked out at the dark yard, at the single string of lights I'd left on. I raised a hand and touched my own hair, my fingers tracing the strands as if to see what he had seen. A compliment. It was just a compliment. But in the barren landscape of my marriage, it felt like the first drop of rain. And I knew with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me that I was in trouble. The days that followed the barbecue were draped in a strange, shimmering haze. The oppressive July heat felt different, charged with a new kind of energy. I would move through my house, my life, performing the same familiar tasks, but my mind was elsewhere. It was replaying that moment under the maple tree, dissecting every word, every fractional shift in Leo's expression. It was a single, perfect photograph I couldn't stop looking at, searching its details for a meaning I both craved and feared. I told myself it was nothing. A trick of the light, a meaningless compliment, a moment of friendly connection amplified by wine and the loneliness of a party. But my body knew otherwise. My body remembered the jolt, the sudden, sharp awareness of my own skin. 2 days later, my phone buzzed on the granite countertop where I was sketching out a new floor plan. It was a text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was before I even read the words. It was a link to an article in an architecture journal, accompanied by a short message. Saw this, and thought of our conversation. This is what you were talking about with using texture to create warmth, right? L. My heart gave a little kick against my ribs. It was so simple, so plausible. Something a friend would do. Mark had never once sent me an article related to my work. He consumed information about his own world, but mine remained a foreign country to him. I saved Leo's number in my phone, my fingers hesitating for a moment. This felt like a choice. A small one, but a choice nonetheless. I texted back a simple, "This is amazing. Thank you for thinking of me." A beat of silence, and then, "I'm always thinking of you, Clara." I stared at the words, my breath catching in my throat. It was a joke. It had to be. A playful, charming, meaningless line. But it didn't feel meaningless. It felt like a key turning in a lock. And so it began. The secret, digital thread that started to weave itself through the fabric of my days. It started innocently enough. A text in the morning. "Hope your day is more inspiring than beige walls." A picture in the afternoon of a funny sign he saw on the street. An exchange in the evening about a movie we had both seen. These messages were little sparks of light in the long, quiet hours of my day. Each buzz of my phone was a tiny hit of adrenaline, a secret that belonged only to me. I found myself checking my phone constantly, my thumb hovering over his name. I'd be in the grocery store, staring at a wall of pasta sauces, and I would be smiling at a joke he'd made. I'd be sitting in traffic, and the memory of his words would make me feel a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun beating down on my car. The contrast with Mark was brutal. Our texts were logistics. "Need you to pick up the dry cleaning. Running late, don't wait up. Did you pay the electric bill?" We were co-managers of a household, our communication reduced to a series of tasks and obligations. With Leo, I was not a manager or a wife. I was just Clara. The true shift happened in the darkness. It was after midnight. The house was still and tomb-like. Mark was asleep beside me, a steady, rhythmic breathing that I used to find comforting, but which now sounded like a metronome ticking away the seconds of my life. The only light was the cool, blue-white glow of my phone screen held under the covers. My world shrank to that small, illuminated rectangle, a portal to a place where I was the sole focus of someone's attention. The late-night texts were different. They were softer, deeper. The witty banter of the daytime dissolved into a quiet intimacy that felt more real than the sleeping man beside me. "What are you thinking about right now?" he asked one night. I could have said nothing, or just trying to sleep. But I told him the truth, about how quiet it is, and how I'm not sure if I like it anymore. A moment passed. "I know what you mean," he wrote back. "Sometimes the quiet is the loudest noise there is." He understood. He didn't offer a solution or a platitude. He just sat with me in that feeling, two separate people staring at their phones in the dark, connected by a shared sense of something missing. He asked me about my dreams, not the ones I had at night, but the ones I'd packed away in boxes in the attic of my mind. I told him I used to paint, that my fingers still itched for the feel of a brush and the smell of turpentine. I told him about a trip to Florence I'd taken in college, how I had cried in front of Botticelli's Venus, not because it was beautiful, but because it was. I was confessing parts of myself I hadn't shared with anyone, not even Mark in the early, passionate days of our love. These were the delicate, dusty corners of my soul, and I was letting him see them. He, in turn, told me of his fear of failure, of his feeling that he was only capturing other people's lives through a lens, never truly living his own. We were trading vulnerabilities like currency, building a fortune of shared secrets in the dark. The flirtation that began to surface was so subtle it was almost deniable. It was in the subtext. "Thinking of you in that blue dress today," he texted once. "You looked like a piece of the summer sky." There it was again, that poetic observation that saw past the surface. My response was a simple, blushing emoji, but my heart hammered in my chest. I knew what was happening. This was not friendship. This was a slow, deliberate seduction of the mind. It was the construction of an intimacy so profound that a physical touch would almost be a step down, a crude translation of a language we had already perfected. The guilt was a constant, low hum in the background. I deleted our message threads every morning, a ritual of erasure that only highlighted the significance of what I was hiding. I would look at Mark, at his handsome, tired face, and feel a sharp, stabbing pity. He trusted me. He trusted Leo. He moved through his world with the solid, simple certainty that his foundation was secure, never knowing that I was tunneling underneath it, creating a secret world he could never enter. The affair had begun. It wasn't in a hotel room or the back seat of a car. It was in the glow of a phone screen at 2 a.m. It was in the shared language of loneliness, in the thrill of a perfectly understood sentence. It was an infidelity of the soul, and I knew with a terrifying clarity that it was the most profound betrayal of all. The week Mark was scheduled to be in Denver felt like an exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. The ritual of his departure was as familiar and sterile as a medical procedure. I helped him pack, ensuring his shirts were perfectly folded, his ties neatly rolled. He gave me a quick, dry kiss at the door, his mind already on spreadsheets and client meetings. "I'll call you tonight," he said. The same promise he always made, a promise that would likely be fulfilled with a tired, 5-minute call about how his flight was. As his car disappeared down the street, I didn't feel the expected pang of loneliness. Instead, a profound, almost illicit sense of calm settled over the house. The silence that was once my enemy now felt like a vast, empty canvas. It was a space that belonged only to me, and the sudden freedom was dizzying. I spent the day in a haze of nervous energy, unable to focus on work, my thoughts circling back again and again to a single name, a single face. That evening, as if on cue, my phone lit up. Mark mentioned he was heading out of town. "You good? Need anything?" Leo's text was a masterpiece of plausible deniability. It was the concerned friend, the surrogate brother, checking in, but we both knew it was more than that. It was a question hanging in the air, an opportunity presented. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my heart thumping a nervous rhythm against my ribs. I could say, "I'm fine, thanks for checking." I could keep the wall of our digital world intact, but I didn't. "I'm good," I typed back, "but I am opening a bottle of wine that feels far too good to drink alone." "If you're not busy," the invitation was sent. The trap was set. For him or for me, I wasn't sure. An hour later, his familiar, slightly beat-up car pulled into my driveway. Seeing him walk up the path to the front door, the door Mark had walked out of just that morning, felt surreal. This was a violation of an unspoken rule. He was crossing a threshold, not just into my home, but into the private, lonely space Mark had created with his absence. The air between us was thick with everything we'd written to each other in the dark. All the shared secrets and whispered confessions now existed in the physical space, an invisible, shimmering curtain separating us. I felt awkward, clumsy in my own body, suddenly hyper-aware of the way I walked, the way I tucked my hair behind my ear. He seemed to feel it too. He brought a bouquet of wildflowers, a gesture so sweet and out of place in our sleek, minimalist living room that it almost made me want to cry. We sat on the sofa, a respectable distance between us, and talked. The conversation flowed as easily as the wine I poured, touching on all the familiar subjects from our texts. His latest photography gig, my struggle with a difficult client, a book we had both read. But it was all different now. I could watch the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. I could hear the actual timbre of his laugh, a warm, rich sound that filled the silent room. He was no longer just words on a screen. He was a living, breathing presence, and his proximity was both a comfort and a torment. My entire nervous system felt alive, attuned to his every movement. The way his hand brushed mine as I passed him the bottle of wine, the way his knee, just inches from my own, seemed to generate its own heat. Hours melted away. The bottle of wine was empty. Outside, the sky had deepened from purple to a velvety black. A soft, ambient jazz station played from the speakers, a soundtrack to the slow, deliberate escalation of tension in the room. He looked at his watch and sighed. "I should probably go," he said, his voice husky. "It's getting late." The words, so normal and mundane, felt like a judgment. The spell was about to break. I walked him to the front door, my legs feeling unsteady. The entryway felt like a stage, the overhead light a harsh spotlight. This was the moment of truth. He would leave, and we would go back to our safe, digital world, pretending this evening never happened. Or he wouldn't. I fumbled with the deadbolt, my hands shaking slightly. "Thank you for the company," I said, my voice sounding strained and artificial. It was nice not to be alone." "Clara," he said, and I finally looked up at him. He hadn't moved to open the door. He was just looking at me, his expression stripped of all pretense. All the charm, all the easy friendship was gone, replaced by a raw, naked vulnerability that mirrored my own. The silence that followed was the most profound I have ever experienced. It was a vacuum, pulling all the air from my lungs. In that silence, he raised his hand, slowly, as if not to startle me. He didn't grab me or pull me closer. He simply laid his palm against my cheek, his fingers gently threading into my hair. His skin was warm. The touch was electric, a lightning strike that traveled from my face down to my toes. I closed my eyes, an involuntary surrender, and leaned into his touch. Just a fraction of an inch. It was all the answer he needed. The kiss, when it came, was not the frantic, desperate collision I might have imagined. It began with a softness, a tenderness that felt like a question. His lips were tentative at first, tasting of red wine and a longing so deep it felt ancient. It was a kiss of pure recognition, a physical confirmation of everything we had confessed in the dark. And then, as my hands came up to grip his shirt, as I gave a small, desperate sigh into his mouth, the tenderness gave way to passion. The dam of weeks of restraint, of unspoken desire, finally broke. His other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I could feel the solid, frantic beating of his heart against my own. It was a deep, searching kiss, a conversation without words. It spoke of lonely nights and a hunger to be seen. It was the most honest thing I had experienced in years. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathless, our foreheads resting against each other. We didn't speak. There was nothing to say. We had just said it all. He looked into my eyes, and I saw a reflection of my own shock, my own terror, and my own devastating joy. "Clara," he whispered, and my name on his lips was both a prayer and a desecration. Then, without another word, he turned, opened the door, and walked out into the night, leaving me alone in the sudden, ringing silence. I leaned back against the cool wood of the door, my legs too weak to hold me. My entire body was humming, vibrating with the aftershock. I raised my fingers to my lips, which still burned from the pressure of his. The ghost of his taste, his touch, was all over me. A wave of guilt, so powerful it was nauseating, washed over me, a cold tide threatening to pull me under. But beneath it, a ferocious, undeniable thrill was rising. A feeling of being chosen, of being wanted, of being truly, incandescently alive. The line was crossed. The betrayal was no longer an idea. It was a memory, a sensation, a taste on my tongue. It was real, and I knew, with the kind of soul-deep certainty from which there is no return, that this was only the beginning. The 2 days that followed the kiss were a strange kind of purgatory. I existed in a state of suspended animation, every nerve ending tingling with the memory of his mouth on mine. The world seemed both muted and hyper-vivid. The colors in my design sketches felt dull, but the memory of the deep, searching look in Leo's eyes was as clear as a photograph. We didn't text. The silence was a taut wire stretched between us, humming with a question that only had one possible answer. The answer came on Thursday afternoon, a single text message, devoid of pleasantries or pretense. My studio, 3 p.m. It wasn't an invitation, it was a summons, a destination, and I knew, with a certainty that bypassed all rational thought, that I would go. The drive across town was surreal. My hands felt disconnected from the steering wheel, my body just a vessel for the storm of fear and desire raging inside me. With every mile that brought me closer to his industrial neighborhood, a voice screamed in my head, a litany of my roles. You are a wife. You are Mark's wife. This is wrong. But another voice, a deeper, quieter whisper, drowned it out. Go. You are a woman. Be seen. His studio was on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse, a place that smelled of turpentine, developing chemicals, and old paper. It was his sanctuary, a world away from the manicured perfection of my life. Dust motes danced in the long shafts of afternoon light that fell from the massive, grimy windows. Canvases leaned against the walls, and black and white prints were pinned up in chaotic, beautiful arrangements. It was a space dedicated to seeing the truth of things, and I felt utterly exposed just by stepping into it. He was standing in the middle of the room, not moving, just watching me. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken words, the easy intimacy of our texts, the explosive passion of our kiss. It all seemed to evaporate, leaving behind a raw, terrifying awkwardness. Clara, he said, his voice low and rough. I couldn't speak, so I just nodded. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant sound of traffic. This was the final moment to turn back, to laugh it off as madness and run. But my feet felt rooted to the spot. He closed the distance between us, his steps slow and deliberate on the worn wooden floor. He stopped right in front of me and did the one thing that could shatter my paralysis. He raised his hand and touched my face, just as he had at the door. His thumb stroked my cheek, a gesture of infinite gentleness in this raw industrial space. That simple touch was my undoing. I leaned into his palm, and he kissed me. This kiss wasn't like the first one. There was no hesitation. It was hungry, demanding, a kiss that was already years overdue. He tasted of coffee and want. I moaned softly into his mouth as his hands moved from my face to my shoulders, his fingers digging slightly into my skin. With a slow, deliberate purpose, he began to unbutton my silk blouse. One by one, I heard the tiny clicks of the pearl buttons coming free, each sound a final nail in the coffin of my old life. The cool studio air hit my skin, and I shivered, not from cold, but from a profound, electrifying vulnerability. He pushed the silk from my shoulders, letting it pool around my elbows, and his gaze fell to what I was wearing underneath. I had chosen it that morning with a sense of fatalistic purpose, a bra and panties of delicate black lace. It was a secret I had worn all day, a hidden declaration of intent. His breath hitched, a sharp, audible intake of air. "God, Clara," he whispered, his voice thick with a reverence that made my knees weak. Mark had never looked at me like that. He saw lingerie as a prelude to a predictable act. Leo saw it as a revelation. His mouth descended, leaving a trail of hot, wet kisses along my collarbone, down the curve of my neck. My head fell back, giving him access. My own hands, clumsy with need, went to his shirt, fumbling with the buttons, desperate to feel his skin against mine. When I finally pushed the fabric aside, the heat from his chest was a shock. I splayed my hands across his hard, muscular torso, learning the shape of him. He unhooked my bra, his movements deft and certain, and it fell away. For a moment, he just looked at me, his artist's eye taking in the sight of my full, round breasts, the nipples already hard and aching. He lowered his head and took one into his mouth, his tongue and teeth creating a pleasure so sharp, so intense, that a cry tore from my throat. This was not the dutiful intimacy I knew. This was worship. As his mouth worked its magic, his hands slid down my back over the curve of my waist to cup my ass, pulling me tight against him. I could feel the hard ridge of his erection through his jeans, a visceral promise of what was to come. I was overwhelmed, drowning in sensation. I whimpered his name, my fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. A slick, hot wetness was already pooling between my legs, my body betraying me, or perhaps finally telling its own truth. He guided me down onto the scratchy, colorful Moroccan rug in the center of the room. The friction of the wool against my bare back was a grounding sensation in the dizzying spiral of my desire. We moved together, a tangle of limbs and desperate hands, shedding the last of our clothes until there was nothing between us but the hot, charged air. Lying there, naked in the dusty afternoon light, I felt more myself than I had in years. He moved over me, his body a beautiful, tense shadow against the bright window. He looked down at me, his eyes dark with a passion that bordered on pain. "I want to see you," he rasped. "I want to watch you." And then he was inside me. The feeling of him filling me was a shock to the system, a deep, primal connection that obliterated every thought from my mind. It was a feeling of being claimed, of being completed. The first few moments were a slow, deep discovery, but the weeks of pent-up longing were too much to contain. The rhythm quickly became frantic, desperate. It was wild and unchoreographed. Our bodies slapped together, the sound echoing in the quiet studio, a raw, percussive beat. My quiet moans became unrestrained cries, my head thrashing from side to side. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him deeper, wanting all of him. This wasn't making love. This was a storm, a beautiful, violent, necessary storm, washing away years of drought. I could feel the climax building, a wave of pressure deep inside me, and I clawed at his back, my nails leaving red marks on his skin. When it hit, it was a complete shattering of self. My body arched off the floor, a guttural cry ripped from my soul, and the world dissolved into a blinding white light. His own release came moments later, a deep groan rumbling from his chest as he poured himself into me, collapsing, spent, on top of my quivering body. We lay there for a long time, tangled together on the floor, our sweat-drenched skin sticking in the afternoon heat. The only sounds were our ragged breaths and the frantic hammering of our hearts. The act was done. The ultimate line had been crossed, and as I lay there, under the weight of him, in the heart of his secret world, I knew the woman who had walked into this studio an hour ago no longer existed. I had been remade in sweat and sin, and I was terrified, and I had never felt more alive. The silence that fell after our first, frantic coupling was heavier and more profound than any silence I had ever known. It wasn't empty. It was dense with the weight of what we had just done, a shared atmosphere thick with sweat, sin, and a terrifying, unspoken intimacy. We lay on the scratchy rug, our limbs tangled, the cooling sweat on our skin making me shiver. I expected panic, a desperate scramble for clothes, and a flood of regret. But it didn't come. Instead, a strange, languid peace settled over me. Leo shifted his weight off me, rolling onto his side to face me. He didn't speak, but his eyes, dark and serious, searched my face. He reached out and gently brushed a stray, damp strand of hair from my cheek. It was a gesture of such simple tenderness it almost broke me. There, in the dusty afternoon light, naked and undone, I felt no shame. I only felt seen. We dressed slowly, the previous awkwardness replaced by a quiet, shared gravity. We were accomplices now, co-conspirators in the demolition of my life. Our affair settled into a secret rhythm, a life within a life. His studio became our sanctuary. The city outside, with its obligations and its noise, ceased to exist the moment I closed that heavy studio door behind me. We carved out stolen hours from Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, times I accounted for with fictitious client meetings and long trips to the design center. Our encounters were no longer the desperate, hurried act of that first day. The wildness was still there, a current of pure, physical hunger that ran beneath everything, but it was now tempered with a deep, unhurried intimacy. We made love on the old, creaking bed in the corner he rarely used, on the worn leather sofa, against the wall with his black and white portraits of strangers watching us. But we also just existed. He would make me coffee, strong and black, just the way I liked it, a detail Mark had never remembered in 7 years. I would rearrange the stacks of art books on his floor, bringing a small piece of my own sense of order into his creative chaos. We talked for hours, my head on his chest, his fingers idly tracing patterns on my bare arm. We talked about everything and nothing, our childhoods, our fears, the ridiculousness of modern art, the simple perfection of a rainy day. He was more than a lover. He was my confidant, the keeper of the version of myself I had kept locked away. One afternoon, as I was sitting by the window, watching the light change on the brick building across the alley, he emerged from his dark room, holding his old Hasselblad camera. "Don't move," he said, his voice soft but commanding. I tensed immediately. "Leo, no. I look a mess." He smiled, a slow, gentle smile. "You look like you. That's what I want. Let me take your picture. Not a snapshot, a real portrait." I was hesitant. The idea of being captured on film, of having my betrayal memorialized in silver gelatin, felt dangerous. But I trusted him. So I sat there, by the window, as he worked. It was the most intimate act we had ever shared, more intimate than sex. He didn't ask me to smile or pose. He just talked to me, his voice a low murmur, as he moved around the room, the loud, mechanical thwack of the camera's shutter echoing in the quiet space. He asked me about my mother, about the first time I fell in love, about what I was most afraid of. He was peeling back the layers, not with his hands, but with his words, his artist's gaze. Through the lens, I felt pinned, examined, understood. He wasn't just looking at my face, he was looking at my soul. 2 weeks later, he showed me the prints. They were stunning, heartbreakingly honest black and white portraits. The woman in the photographs was me, but a version of me I had never allowed myself to see. Her face was a landscape of conflict. There was a profound sadness in her eyes, a weariness around her mouth. But there was also a strength in the line of her jaw, a flicker of defiance, a spark of life that had been missing for so long. I saw the loneliness. I saw the desire. I saw the guilt. He had captured it all. He had seen the truth of me and, instead of turning away, had called it beautiful. I pressed my fingers to the glossy paper, tracing the outline of my own face, and finally, the tears I had been holding back for months began to fall. This secret life, this vibrant, technicolor world with Leo, made my real life feel like a faded photograph. The guilt was a living thing now, a constant companion that sat on my shoulder. When I was home with Mark, the contrast was a physical pain. He would walk in from work, kiss my cheek, and launch into a story about his day, and I would feel a dizzying sense of dislocation. I was a spy in my own home. His touch, once a comfort, now felt like an accusation. One evening, he reached for me in bed, his hand settling on my waist with a familiar, husbandly possessiveness. I flinched, an involuntary recoiling that I tried to cover with a cough. "You okay?" he asked, his voice laced with sleep. "Just tired," I lied, turning my back to him. my heart hammering. How could I let him touch me when the scent of Leo's skin still felt imprinted on mine, when the memory of Leo's mouth was a ghost on my lips? I had become a meticulous liar. I had alibis for my alibis. I showered the moment I got home from the studio, scrubbing my skin raw, as if I could wash away the sin. I learned to smile and nod, to ask the right questions about Mark's work, to play the part of the devoted wife with an actress's skill. But I felt fractured, split in two. The woman who laughed and loved so freely in Leo's studio and the quiet, accommodating woman who managed Mark's home were two different people, and the effort of holding them both inside me was utterly exhausting. The connection with Leo was the most real thing in my life, a bond forged not just in passion, but in a deep, emotional recognition. He had resurrected a part of me I thought was dead, but this resurrection was built on a bedrock of deceit. The deeper our connection grew, the more of a phantom I became in my own life. The affair was my salvation, and it was my prison. As our affair deepened, so did our hunger. The quiet, tender intimacy of the studio was the heart of our connection, but it had ignited a secondary fire, a raw, insatiable lust that demanded a different kind of altar. The studio was our sanctuary, but we began to crave a place that was purely for the sin itself, a space untainted by art or conversation, a place where we could be nothing but two bodies lost in the heat of a shared transgression. The text came on a Wednesday. It was just an address. A numbered room at a no-name motel off the interstate, one of those forgotten places with a flickering neon sign and peeling paint, a place where secrets were the common currency. There was no question, no prelude. It was a destination. I knew this was a different kind of invitation. This wasn't about connection. It was about consumption. And as I drove towards the city's edge, a dark, thrilling excitement coiled in my stomach. This time, I wasn't an accidental victim of my own loneliness. I was a willing pilgrim on a journey to the heart of my own desire. I had dressed for the occasion. Beneath a simple, respectable trench coat, I wore a slip dress of emerald green silk. It was a dress I could never wear in my real life. It was too bold, too slinky, too overt in its sensuality. The silk felt cool and illicit against my skin, a secret promise. When I knocked on the door of room 112, he opened it immediately, as if he'd been waiting right behind it. He wore just a pair of jeans, his chest bare, his hair damp. We didn't speak. His eyes drank me in, and in them, I saw a reflection of my own ravenous need. I stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind me, sealing us in the anonymous, dimly lit room. I slowly unbelted my coat, letting it fall from my shoulders to the floor in a heap. The only sound was the soft whisper of the silk as it resettled over my body, clinging to every curve. Leo's breath caught in his throat. His eyes, dark as midnight, roamed over me, from the thin straps on my shoulders to the way the fabric hugged my hips and thighs. "Jesus, Clara," he rasped, his voice thick. He stalked towards me, backing me against the cool wood of the door, caging me in with his arms. "You knew exactly what you were doing when you put that on." I tilted my chin up, a boldness I didn't know I possessed rising within me. "I was hoping," I whispered. His mouth crashed down on mine, a hungry, bruising kiss that tasted of pure possession. This was not the tender exploration of our first encounters. This was a claiming. His hands roamed my body, sliding over the slick silk, learning the shape of me beneath it. He bunched the material in his fists, lifting the hem higher and higher up my thighs. I gasped into his mouth, my hands tangling in his hair, pulling him impossibly closer. The foreplay was a frantic, desperate storm of unbuckled belts and shed clothing, a race to get skin on skin. When we were both naked, he lifted me as if I weighed nothing and carried me across the room. But he didn't go to the bed. He set me down on the cool, solid surface of the cheap wooden desk, pushing aside a Gideon's Bible and a laminated room service menu. The shock of the cool wood on my hot skin made me cry out. I was on display, exposed and vulnerable on this makeshift altar, and I had never felt so powerful. He stepped between my open legs, his gaze unwavering. "Look at me," he commanded, and I did. I watched his face, taut with concentration and desire, as he guided himself to my entrance. I was so incredibly wet for him, my arousal a slick, welcoming heat. The sounds began then, the soft, lapping noises as his fingers explored me, the wet slap of our bodies meeting as he pushed slowly, deliberately inside me. The feeling of being filled by him in this position, so open and exposed, was dizzying. This was a different kind of dance. It was harder, faster, deeper. My moans were no longer quiet whimpers. They were loud, unrestrained cries of pure animal pleasure that echoed in the small, stuffy room. The sound of our bodies meeting was a frantic, wet, slapping rhythm, a primal beat that was the only music in the world. He leaned in close, his lips brushing my ear, his hot breath sending shivers down my spine. The words he whispered were a litany of filth and praise, a torrent of dirty talk that stripped away the last of my inhibitions. "Tell me how much you want this, Clara," he growled, his thrusts matching the rhythm of his words. "Tell me whose you are right now." And I did. I confessed everything. I told him how he felt inside me, how I thought about this all day, how I belonged only to him in this room, on this desk. Each confession, each dirty word I uttered, seemed to fuel his passion, and he fucked me with a ferocious intensity that bordered on violence. It was exactly what I wanted. It was a purge. The climax began to build, a furious, unstoppable wave. My world narrowed to a single point of incandescent friction where our bodies joined. I felt a scream building in my throat, a raw, primal sound of pure ecstasy. As it tore from my lips, he lunged forward and captured my mouth with his, swallowing my cry, consuming my release. My body convulsed around him, a violent, shuddering orgasm that seemed to last an eternity, milking every last drop of pleasure until I was nothing but a trembling, boneless heap on the desk. He followed quickly after, his own guttural groan muffled against my lips as he poured himself into me. For a long time, we didn't move. He collapsed against me, his heavy, panting body a warm weight. The only sounds were our ragged gasps for air and the hum of the ancient air conditioner. The room was thick with the scent of sex, a heavy, musky perfume of our sin. This hadn't been about love or tenderness. This had been about lust. It was a raw, selfish, and utterly consuming act of pure physical desire. We had explored the very edges of our hunger for each other and found it to be bottomless. It was a different kind of intimacy, a bond forged in the fires of pure, unadulterated carnality. And as I lay there, spent and sated, I knew that this peak of desire hadn't quenched the thirst. It had only made it stronger. The greatest danger in a secret life is not the lie itself, but the comfort you find within it. After months of clandestine meetings, of stolen hours in the studio and anonymous motel rooms, Leo and I had fallen into a rhythm. We had built a world with its own rules, its own routines, its own geography. The risk had become a baseline hum, a constant background noise that we had learned to ignore. We had become complacent. We had become careless. That carelessness nearly destroyed everything. It was a crisp evening in late September. The sun was setting, painting the sky in lurid shades of orange and purple. We were in his car, parked on a quiet, tree-lined street about 4 blocks from my house. We had just spent the afternoon at his studio, and now we were caught in that liminal space between our world and my reality, reluctant to let the day end. The windows were fogged from our breath, sealing us in a private, steamy bubble. The soft glow of the dashboard lights illuminated his face as he leaned over to kiss me. It was a slow, deep kiss, a kiss of comfortable intimacy, not frantic passion. It was the kiss of two people who believed they had all the time in the world. I was lost in the familiar taste of him, the scent of his skin, the soft scratch of his 5 o'clock shadow. My hand was resting on his chest, feeling the steady, reassuring beat of his heart. In that moment, in that car, I felt completely safe. I had compartmentalized my life so effectively that I could almost forget that just a few hundred yards away, another life, my real life, was waiting for me. That was my mistake. A pair of headlights cut through the twilight, turning onto our quiet street. I barely registered them at first. Cars passed all the time. But these lights were different. They were higher off the ground, brighter, more aggressive. They belonged to an SUV. They belonged to Mark's SUV. Time seemed to bend and distort. The recognition was not a thought, but a physical blow. A ball of ice formed in my stomach and shot through my veins, freezing me from the inside out. He wasn't supposed to be home for another 2 hours. He had a dinner meeting with a developer downtown. My mind raced, trying to find a reason, an explanation. But there was only one horrifying truth. He was here. "Leo," I breathed, my voice a strangled whisper. Pulling away from him so fast I hit my head on the window. "What?" he started to ask. But then he saw it too, the familiar, imposing shape of the black Lincoln Navigator moving steadily towards us. Panic, pure and undiluted, seized me. "Oh God," I whimpered, my hands flying to my mouth. Leo reacted instantly. His hand shot out and slammed the button to kill the soft interior lights, plunging us into darkness. "Get down," he hissed, his voice a low, urgent command. I didn't need to be told twice. I slid down in the passenger seat as far as I could go, curling myself into a tight ball, my face pressed into the cheap leather. My heart was a wild bird beating against the cage of my ribs, so loud I was sure Mark would be able to hear it from his car. The next 30 seconds were the longest of my life. I watched through the small gap between the dashboard and the window as the SUV crawled past. It felt like it was moving in slow motion. I could hear the crunch of its heavy tires on the asphalt, the faint, tinny sound of the news radio station he always listened to. I could see the silhouette of his head, his familiar profile, oblivious, staring straight ahead. Every muscle in my body was screaming. He sees us. He's slowing down. He knows. My life is over. My carefully constructed world is about to be burned to the ground. I held my breath until my lungs burned, my eyes squeezed shut, praying to a God I no longer believed in. I pictured the moment his brake lights would flash red. I pictured his car door opening, his face appearing at my window, contorted in a mask of rage and betrayal. The SUV continued past our car without slowing. It reached the corner, the red blinker clicking on, and turned right in the direction of our house. And then it was gone. Silence. The ringing in my ears was deafening. Neither of us moved. We were two statues frozen in the dark, listening. Listening for the sound of a car, reversing, for the slam of a door, for the angry crunch of footsteps on the pavement. Nothing. Only the distant chirp of crickets and the hum of the city. He hadn't seen us. He had driven right past his wife and his best friend, locked in a clandestine embrace, and he hadn't seen a thing. A ragged, shuddering gasp for air escaped my lungs, and then another. I started to tremble. A violent, uncontrollable shaking that seemed to rattle my very bones. It was the adrenaline, the terror, finally finding an exit. I looked over at Leo. In the dim light, I could see his hands gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles bone white. He was staring straight ahead, his jaw clenched, his chest rising and falling rapidly. We had come so close, so terrifyingly close to utter annihilation. When he finally spoke, his voice was a raw, shaky whisper. "Clara, are you okay?" I couldn't form words, so I just nodded, my teeth chattering. He reached across the center console and took my hand. His was trembling too. His touch wasn't sensual or possessive. It was a lifeline. It was the touch of a fellow survivor. We sat like that for a full 5 minutes, our hands clasped in the dark, our shared terror a third presence in the car. I should have felt sick with guilt. I should have been repulsed by what we were doing, by the risk we were taking. A sane person would have taken this as a sign, a final, blaring warning to stop before it was too late. But as the initial wave of fear subsided, something else began to take its place. A strange, intoxicating exhilaration. We had faced the ultimate danger and survived. We had looked into the abyss together and stepped back from the edge. This shared secret, this moment of pure, heart-stopping fear, was more potent than any kiss. It fused us together in a way that passion alone never could. He lifted my hand to his lips and kissed my shaking fingers. Then he leaned over and kissed me, his mouth desperate and hungry. The kiss was different now, edged with the metallic taste of adrenaline. It wasn't a kiss of comfort, it was a seal, a reaffirmation of our pact. The danger didn't scare us. It electrified us. 10 minutes later, I walked through my own front door. Mark was in the kitchen, oblivious, complaining that his meeting had been canceled at the last minute. He smiled when he saw me, a normal, husbandly smile. I smiled back, my body still humming with a toxic cocktail of fear and arousal, the ghost of Leo's kiss still burning on my lips. The close call hadn't been a warning, it had been a baptism, and it had just made our betrayal feel that much sweeter. Adrenaline is a fickle lover. It burns hot and bright, making the world sharp and vivid, but the crash always comes. In the days that followed our near discovery, the exhilarating thrill that had bonded Leo and me so tightly began to curdle into a constant, sickening anxiety. The world no longer felt full of thrilling risk. It felt seeded with landmines. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from Mark, my heart would seize. Every unexpected knock at the door sent a jolt of pure terror through me. The comfortable carelessness we had cultivated was gone, replaced by a hyper-vigilant paranoia that was utterly exhausting. The affair, once my escape from the pressures of my life, had become the single greatest source of stress within it. The sweetness of our betrayal was beginning to acquire a bitter, metallic aftertaste, like old blood. The most profound change, however, happened within the walls of my own home. My guilt, once a manageable hum in the background of my thoughts, grew into a roaring, ever-present monster. It changed the very way I saw my husband. I had built my justification for the affair on the foundation of Mark's neglect, casting him as the emotionally absent husband who had driven me into the arms of another. But now, my guilt-ridden eyes saw him differently. One evening, I came downstairs late at night for a glass of water and found him asleep at the dining room table, his head resting on a pile of architectural blueprints, a pen still clutched in his hand. The overhead light cast harsh shadows on his face, highlighting the lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the slight silvering at his temples I hadn't noticed before. In that moment, he wasn't the powerful, ambitious architect who ignored me. He was just a tired man, working himself to the bone to provide for us, to build a life he thought we both wanted. A man who, for all his emotional distance, was fundamentally decent and good. A man who trusted me, who trusted his best friend. A wave of pity so profound it felt like grief washed over me. He was completely oblivious, sleeping soundly in the heart of his home while the two people he trusted most in the world were systematically betraying him. I felt like a sickness, a cancer that had invaded this house. The next morning, as I was rushing to leave for a fictitious client meeting, he stopped me, holding out a travel mug of coffee. "You looked tired last night," he said, his voice soft with genuine concern. "Figured you could use this." It was such a small gesture, so simple, but it felt like a hot poker to my conscience. Years of resentment had made me blind to these small kindnesses. Now, every one of them felt like another stone on my already heavy heart. The pressure was affecting our secret world, too. The perfect, hermetically sealed bubble Leo and I had built began to develop cracks. The easy, unshakable understanding between us started to falter under the weight of our impossible reality. He grew resentful of the life I returned to after our afternoons together. "What did you do last night?" he'd ask, his tone casual but his eyes searching. "Did you have dinner together? Did he touch you?" The questions were poison, reminders of the division between my two lives. He, my passionate, attentive lover, was relegated to stolen hours and secret spaces, while Mark, my oblivious husband, had all of me, at least on paper. The frustration began to fester. "I hate this, Clara," he confessed one afternoon, pacing the floor of his studio. "I hate sharing you. I hate hearing you talk about your weekend plans with him, acting like everything is normal. When do I get the weekend? When do I get to be the one you come home to?" His pain was valid, I knew it was. But it was also a pressure I couldn't bear. "What did you think this was, Leo?" I snapped back, my own frayed nerves finally giving way. We knew the rules. There is no weekend. There is no coming home, there is just this. This was all it could ever be. The first real fight we ever had was brutal. It was ugly and honest, and it shattered the beautiful illusion we had so carefully constructed. He accused me of using him, of only wanting the thrill without any real emotional investment. I accused him of being naive, of forgetting the single most important fact of our relationship. that he was, and always would be, my husband's best friend. We threw our own pain at each other like stones, each word designed to wound. In the heat of the argument, the sex that followed was different. It wasn't tender or passionate. It was angry. It was a desperate, punishing act, a way to close the distance the fight had opened between us, a way to reassert our claim on each other through the sheer force of flesh on flesh. It was a way to forget the truth, that our perfect escape had become a cage for us both. We made up, of course. We clung to each other afterwards, whispering apologies into the darkness. But the damage was done. The cracks were there. The unspoken resentments, the impossible future, the ever-present guilt, it had all been brought into the light, and it couldn't be unseen. The affair was no longer a beautiful, secret garden. It was a battlefield, and we were both becoming casualties. The sweetness had not just faded, it had begun to rot, and I was trapped, caught between a marriage that felt like a lie and a love affair that was becoming an agony. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my bones. Something had to give. The entire fragile structure was groaning under the strain, and I knew with a terrifying certainty that it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. The end did not arrive with a dramatic explosion, but with the quiet, inexorable crumbling of a structure that had been compromised from its very conception. The cracks that had appeared in our affair had spread, spiderwebbing through every secret meeting, every stolen kiss. The joy had been leached out, replaced by a constant gnawing anxiety and a sorrow so profound it felt like a physical illness. The breaking point came on a Sunday. Mark and I were in the garden, doing mindless yard work. He made a joke, an old, silly pun he'd used 100 times before, and he laughed, a full, easy laugh. And looking at his unsuspecting face, his eyes crinkling in the autumn sunlight, the full weight of my deceit crashed down on me with the force of a physical blow. I was a monster. I was living a lie that was actively, cruelly destroying the soul of this good, trusting man. That night, I sent the text. My hands were shaking so badly I had to type it 3 times. Leo, we need to talk. For the last time. Your studio. Tomorrow. The walk up the 3 flights of stairs to his studio felt like a climb to the gallows. The familiar scent of chemicals that had once seemed so exotic and alluring now smelled like formaldehyde, the scent of something preserved, something dead. When he opened the door, the hope in his eyes died the moment he saw my face. There was no kiss, no embrace. The space between us was a cold, desolate landscape. We stood in the center of the room, the site of our first, frantic coupling, now a stage for our final act. "Don't," he whispered, his voice cracking before I'd even spoken a word. "Clara, whatever it is, don't." But the words had to be said. I owed him that. I owed myself that. "It's poison, Leo," I began, my own voice a stranger's, thin and brittle. "What we have, it was beautiful. It was everything to me, but it's built on a foundation of lies, and it's poisoning everything. It's poisoning you. It's poisoning me. And it is a slow, cruel poison to Mark." Tears streamed down my face, hot and shameful. I can't be this person anymore. I look in the mirror and I don't know who I am. I look at him and I feel a guilt so profound it's like I can't breathe. He sank down onto the edge of his unmade bed, burying his face in his hands. "So that's it? You're just ending it?" "We are ending it," I corrected him softly, kneeling in front of him. "We have to. We are trapped, and the only way out is to walk away. Before we destroy each other completely, before he finds out and we destroy him." He looked up at me then, his face a mask of pure heartbreak, his own eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I love you, Clara," he said, the words, a devastating, final confession. "I know," I sobbed, my heart splintering into a million pieces. "And that's why this is so impossible. I love you too." We were adrift in a sea of shared grief. There were no more arguments to be had, no more blame to assign. There was only the quiet, agonizing truth of our ending. He reached out and cupped my face, his thumbs gently wiping away my tears. "One last time," he whispered, his voice thick with sorrow. Not for passion, for goodbye. It wasn't a question, it was a plea. A desperate, final need to communicate everything we felt in the only way we had left. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. The lovemaking that followed was unlike anything we had ever shared. It was an act of mourning. Every movement was slow, deliberate, steeped in a profound and tender sadness. He undressed me with the reverence of a priest preparing a final sacrament. I undressed him with hands that trembled, memorizing the feel of his skin, the landscape of his body for the last time. We didn't fuck, we clung to each other. We moved together in a slow, languid rhythm, a dance of pure despair. His kisses were soft, salty with the taste of both our tears. He kissed my eyelids, my cheeks, the hollow of my throat, as if trying to brand the memory of me onto his lips. I held his face in my hands, my gaze locked with his, trying to absorb a lifetime of looking at him into a few final moments. I traced the lines of his face, the curve of his mouth, the sadness in his dark eyes. There were no hungry moans or cries of pleasure. There were only the soft, broken sighs of two people saying farewell. It was a desperate, physical prayer, an attempt to say all the things we could never put into words. The gratitude, the regret, the love, the sorrow. When the end came, it was not a fiery explosion of pleasure, but a quiet, shuddering release of grief. A sob tore from my throat as my body clenched around him, and he held me tightly, burying his face in my hair as his own body found its sorrowful release. It was the sound of a final, painful death. Afterwards, we lay in silence, not touching. The spell was broken. The last thread connecting us had been severed. We dressed without looking at each other, the quiet, mundane sounds of zippers and rustling fabric feeling obscene in the funereal atmosphere of the room. The intimacy was gone, replaced by the hollow ache of loss. At the door, we faced each other one last time. There were no promises to call, no lies about friendship. We both knew this had to be absolute. To see each other again would be a fresh torment, an impossible cruelty. "Goodbye, Clara," he said, his voice a ghost. "Goodbye, Leo," I whispered, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I turned and walked out the door, and I did not look back. I walked down the 3 flights of stairs, each step taking me further from the most vibrant, painful, and alive version of myself I had ever known. I was walking back to my life, to my silent house, to my oblivious husband. The affair was over, but as I stepped out into the cold, gray air of the city, I felt no relief. Only the vast, echoing emptiness of a space inside me that had been carved out, a space that I knew would never, ever be filled again. It has been a year, 12 months. 4 full seasons have turned, each one painting the city in a different light, each one a quiet, steady beat in the drum of my new reality. On the surface, nothing has changed. I still live in this beautiful, silent house. Mark is still my husband. He is more successful than ever, his firm now taking on international projects. He travels more, but his absences are no longer a relief, just a different kind of emptiness. We are a photograph of a happy marriage, a perfect, glossy image for the world to see. No one would ever suspect the rot that lies beneath the pristine surface. No one would know that our life together is a carefully curated museum of what used to be, and I am its lonely, haunted curator. Leo is gone. He moved to Portland about 6 months after our last meeting. Mark was the one who told me, his voice casual over dinner one night. "Got a weird call from Leo today," he'd said, shaking his head. "He's moving. Took some teaching gig out on the West Coast. Can you believe it? Just packing up and leaving." I remember nodding, my throat so tight I couldn't speak, and stabbing at the salmon on my plate. I felt a strange, secondary heartbreak, the quiet, final closing of a door I already knew was locked. Mark misses him. He sometimes complains that he doesn't have anyone to talk to who gets it. The irony is a blade that twists in my gut every single time. The silence in our house is different now. It is no longer just the absence of sound. It is a presence. It is a heavy, weighted blanket woven with all the words I can never say. It sits between us at the dinner table. It lies in the marital bed, a cold, vast continent separating my body from his. On the rare occasions he reaches for me, his touch feels like a stranger's, and I have to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from flinching. I can't bear his intimacy. It feels like a profanity, a violation not against my body, but against the ghost of the one I truly gave myself to. He sees a wife who is perhaps a little sadder, a little more distant, and he likely attributes it to stress or the simple passage of time. He has no idea that he is sleeping next to a mausoleum, a woman whose most vital parts are already dead and buried. I don't know if I feel regret. The word is too simple, too neat for the tangled, chaotic mess of my emotions. Do I regret the pain, the lies, the unforgivable wound I dealt to the trust of a good man? Yes, the guilt is a part of my DNA now. It lives in my marrow. But do I regret feeling alive? Do I regret being seen, truly seen, for the first time in a decade? Do I regret the feeling of his hands on my skin, the sound of his voice whispering my name in the dark, the brief, brilliant, sun-drenched season of feeling utterly, completely desired? Number, and that is my true damnation. The affair was the poison, but for a time, it was also the antidote. It woke me from a long, slow death of invisibility, and I cannot bring myself to regret the feeling of my own resurrection, even if it was a false one, destined to end in this quiet, elegant tomb. Sometimes, late at night when the house is still, the memories come for me. They are ghosts with an impeccable sensory recall. The scent of rain on hot pavement will suddenly transport me to the parking lot of that cheap motel. A certain slant of afternoon light will bring back the dusty, sacred air of his studio. I still have the photograph he took, the portrait of the sad, defiant woman by the window. It's hidden at the bottom of my lingerie drawer, tucked inside an old art history book. Sometimes, I take it out and stare at the woman he saw. I miss her. I miss her more than I miss him. I miss the woman who was capable of such intense feeling, even if those feelings were destructive. She was a flawed, selfish, and reckless creature, but she was vibrantly, painfully alive. I don't know who this new woman is, this quiet, careful ghost who floats through the rooms of this perfect house. Mark never found out. He will never know. In the beginning, that was my greatest fear. Now, I understand that it is my greatest punishment. There is no dramatic confrontation, no catharsis of anger and forgiveness, no chance to explain or atone. There is only the long, slow, unending sentence of my silence. The affair is over, but it will never be gone. I carry it with me every second of every day. It is the secret I keep when I smile at my husband. It is the taste of ash in my mouth when I say, I love you. It is the invisible weight that presses down on my chest as I try to sleep at night. I have come to understand that the most terrible part of a secret is not the risk of its discovery, but the lifelong burden of keeping it